Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. I want to talk today about D.E.I. I want to talk about what is happening in the Defense Department. I think this is very important. When one thinks about being politically correct, well, that's something that I think is always debatable, because one person's correctness is another person's insanity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I had the pleasure of speaking yesterday to the Oakland Rotary Club. Marvelous group, excellent food, by the way, and just lovely people. And in the process of talking with them, I talked about DEI. And I looked around the room because at that Rotary Club, there was diversity, equity, and inclusion. There were all kinds of people. And frankly, that diversity made what happened yesterday even more interesting. Now, here's the question for you. Do you believe in purging names, purging people? Do you believe in excluding people? Well, that's what they tried to do with Jackie Robinson, black athlete, national hero, a man who I met on several occasions during the 1968 campaign. But I want to be clear about something. Excluding Jackie Robinson, and by the way, not just Jackie Robinson, Colin Powell, former Secretary of State, former National Security Advisor to Ronald Reagan. The minute you start saying because someone is black or because someone is Hispanic, they should be excluded, I think it's appalling. Not only that, one of the things that was purged were references to the Holocaust, including people who had helped to liberate the camps back in 1945. Now, here's a question for you. Why is that being eliminated? That's history. You may know from my activities over the years that the last thing I like to see is erasing history, using this kind of attitude to purge people who deserve recognition. And by the way, not just that, but to inspire people. That's right, inspire people who are of different colors, different backgrounds. You know what really got to me? When it came to the Holocaust, I had the pleasure of presiding over the 50th anniversary of the liberation of the camps. It brought together the liberators and those who were liberated. It was one of the most moving ceremonies I've ever attended. Would that be the sort of thing that would be purged by the Defense Department because of this insane policy? And the answer is yes. There is no question that when the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, that the name of the plane was the Enola Gay. That's right, the Enola Gay. And guess what? Because the term gay was used, well, they wanted to drop the Enola Gay, and they did. This is something beyond comprehension. By the way, the name Enola Gay was the pilot's mother's name. There is something wrong with what is happening now in Washington. I was asked bluntly whether I believe in the idea of diversity in our work. And the answer is yes. Diversity is critical, and inclusion is critical, and equity is absolutely essential. So I'm making a case now that what is happening in this moment by this White House and the instructions of Donald Trump, frankly, are just plain wrong. And I hope you agree with me. This is something which we will hear more and more about. Now I want to talk about something else. As I record this, we are waiting to hear whether the Trump administration will be in compliance with the order of a federal district judge. I don't know what the outcome will be. I can't imagine that the Trump administration would defy an order to produce information about those who were deported, despite a federal judge's order. But what happens when we find out? If, in fact, the Trump administration defied the law, is there a response? These are questions that are serious and need to be addressed, and yes, need to be answered. And shortly, once I finish with this podcast, we will know the answer. My hope is that there will not be a confrontation between the courts and the executive. That's not good for America. It really isn't. And more than that, let's be clear that Elon Musk is now getting behind the political action committees that are threatening judges. This is unconscionable. And the fact that he is serving as an advisor to the President of the United States while pursuing these political ends, if this were a Democrat doing this, there would be fury. Now, you all know that I'm not particularly happy with Donald Trump. And there are issues on which I differ substantially. But I can debate issues. I can debate whether you're for or against a policy. But it's hard to deal with a man who clearly is an obstructionist. That's right. Not only that, a man who is determined to reshape the government of the United States in his image. This is something that we cannot tolerate as Americans. It is something that we must resist with every fiber of our being. And I hope Republicans will understand clearly and precisely that this is just plain wrong. And if not, if the Republicans don't wake up, then I think the Republican Party will pay the price. They will not be able to blame Donald Trump. They'll have to put the blame squarely on their own shoulders. It is interesting to note that when it comes to the Department of Defense, where more and more cuts are being demanded and being implemented, that the chair of the House committee dealing with military affairs, and the same in the Senate, are now turning around and saying to the president, wait a minute, slow down. Let me tell you, when the House Armed Services Committee makes a reaction against Donald Trump, I think he's got a problem. So we're going to have to wait and see. And I must tell you, I regret that I won't be here over the weekend. I do take Saturday and Sunday off. I regret it because I have a feeling a lot is going to be breaking. And so when we conclude this podcast, I will turn on the television set to see whether or not the President of the United States, the Trump administration, will defy a federal court judge. I suggest you all read Marbury versus Madison. It is the judiciary which is the check. And it seems to me the balance to our balance of powers comes from precisely this kind of review. Have a great weekend. I will be back on Monday. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. That's our goal, of course. And of course, you can interact with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or you can send me an email. But I especially want to thank Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast. Gogo makes sure we are up and running each and every day. Gogo, thank you. You make Around the Political World with John Rothman what it is. I am John Rothman. I will be back on Monday. And, well, I can't wait. See you then.